Well, roads are going to be packed as people head to the coast and other parts of the country for a well-deserved break after what's been a very, 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 very long year. But it's time to be safe. So how do you prepare? Let's find out. The AA's Layton joins us now live. So, Layton, let's start with the basics, because if you're like me, you'll actually want to wait for the light in your car to come on before checking things out. I imagine you're going to tell me that's the wrong approach ahead of a long road trip.
Well, yeah, it is absolutely the wrong approach. And, Shahan, you and your Bentley, I think, would be very happy, just driving along like that. But unfortunately, for the majority of drivers in South Africa, you've got to be a little bit more proactive than that. So your car certainly is going to tell you a few things. It's going to give you some indications of when a service is due. It may tell you when your tires need to be looked at. It may give you a raft of various things electronically. But what you really want to do is you want to do that checking yourself. You may want to take it in for a service if you haven't already done so before your journey, so if you're leaving maybe later in December. But you do want to have these things checked. You want to make sure your tires are in a good condition. You want to make sure your windscreens are in a good condition. You want to maybe look at your wipers as well, front and back. So there are some checks that you should do. And even if your car is intuitive and is telling you some things, just for your own peace of mind, you should be doing those checks yourself, just so that you are 100% confident that the vehicle you're getting into is going to be good enough to take you on your journey and then obviously bring you back again as well.
For you, because I'm not going to be able to go to my car and check for fluid levels and handbrake leaks and all of those things clearly, right?
No, I mean there's a lot of things that a lot of people aren't going to want to do themselves, and that's why we have mechanics, and that's why we have, for instance, the AA Auto Center, where you can take your car in to have somebody who has professional. Well, I mean, you want to take it to somebody who's got a professional eye who can look at these things. So you definitely want to take it to a mechanic. You want to take it to somebody professional. If you're uncomfortable doing that type of thing on your own, you have to get it checked out. There are very many tire fitment places around the country that you can go and have your tires looked at. And I want to urge everybody to do that before they go on a long journey. It's such a vital piece of safety equipment on a vehicle. So please have your tires looked at and replace them if they need to be replaced. But if there are things that you don't want to look at on your car on your own, then you have to consult the expert, Sean. And I think that's a very important piece of advice.
Yeah, definitely. You're mentioning tires, and there are weather warnings out for this weekend. It's raining in some parts of the country. Yeah. You have to be extra careful under these conditions, right? What do you look out for when it is pouring, especially when there's hail, for instance, on the roads?
Yeah. So, I think the first thing I would say to people is just consult social media, listen to the radio, look at television, look at the weather reports, look at online, media reports. Just get an idea of the journey that you're going to be taking, the route that you will be following, what the weather looks like on that route. Don't kind of drive into a hailstorm almost unannounced. Kind of give yourself a little bit of warning by doing a bit of research before you leave. And, fortunately, you can do that type of research, or passengers in that vehicle can do that type of research, or you can do it when you stop. So just be aware of what you're heading into. Again, you don't want to be finding out last minute that your windscreen wipers have deteriorated in the sun and are no longer working properly. If they're squeaking or squealing or scratching, they're trying to tell you something. So get those replaced. Again, an extremely vital piece of safety equipment on a vehicle, something you don't want to find out at the last minute when you're in a hailstorm. Obviously, if you're in a hailstorm, you want to find a place to get cover. It's something that everybody wants to do. You've got to sometimes, unfortunately, take your chances when there isn't any cover available. Maybe get into a petrol station or a parking lot or something like that. But be forewarned. Slow down, obviously. Make sure your tires are in a good condition. If your tires are worn and you're driving into a wet situation and the road surface isn't great and there may be potholes on the road as well, you're looking for trouble. Aquaplaning is very real. We know pedestrians are also going to be walking around even if it's raining very hard. So make sure your lights are on, be visible to other people, be visible to people who are walking on the road. And it also obviously helps you see. So focus on the road, put your cell phones and your electronic devices away. You can probably tell everybody in the car just to keep quiet while you're driving through the stretch, maybe put the radio off. But the key word here is focus, and I think that's a very important piece of advice as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the state of our national roads, but you've already mentioned potholes, etc. Another key question, of course, is saving fuel, because out here in Gauteng, all inland areas, we're paying over 20 Rand for a litre of petrol. So how do we actually save fuel while driving long distance? Is it a matter of sticking to the speed limit of 120 kilometers and driving slowly?
Yeah. Look, there's so many variables, but I mean, obviously sticking to the speed limit is a piece of advice we get from a safety point of view as well as a fuel consumption point of view. You've got to understand that the heavier you are on that petrol pedal, the more consumption you're going to have. The harder you brake, the more consumption you're going to have. These are the types of things that people need to know. If you're towing another vehicle, like a trailer or a caravan, you're obviously going to use more fuel. If you're using your air conditioner, or if you've got a lot of windows open, you're going to be using a lot more fuel. It's not going to be as noticeable as if you're trailing a vehicle, but certainly if you are going to be using your aircon and keeping your windows open, you will over a period of time notice that there's more consumption. I think the key word here in terms of, or the key message in terms of your fuel consumption, Shahan, is you've got to plan your route very carefully before you leave. Understand the road you're going to take and how long it is. Understand what the fuel consumption on your vehicle is and budget accordingly. You don't want to be stopped at a tolling booth somewhere on the N3 only to discover that if you spend 50 Rand on the toll booth there, you're not going to have enough money to pay for fuel to get you to your destination. So you've got to obviously budget very carefully and budget for the return journey as well. That's unfortunately something that a lot of people don't factor in. So you've got to look at how much the fuel is going to cost, and if you're going to be using your vehicle while you're on holiday, also obviously budget in whatever you're going to be using down there. The fuel at the coastal areas is going to be a bit cheaper, which is great, but you've still got to make that budget work for you. So don't put 500 Rand in your fuel allowance when you actually need 1,500.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for the insight. Appreciate it. The Automobile Association spokesperson Layton Beard.